Hi, welcome to Coffee with Kim. I'm Kim Bassett, your host. And if you saw the advertisements for this, you are in for such a treat today. There are people, or a lot of us in life, we've tried to find our purpose. We try to find those dreams, the things that we want, and sometimes they're closer to us than we realize. And today's guest is definitely an inspiration for that.
Today on Coffee with Kim, coming from Atlanta, Georgia, is Hannah Campbell Zapletal. Hannah was raised in Haiti with missionary parents who worked primarily with agriculture and infrastructure construction. While she was there, she developed a love for horses. When the time came, Hannah came to the U.S. to earn her degree in biology, yet her love for horses continued. This amazing horsewoman, author, entrepreneur, wife, and mother of three has created a legacy with her 501c3 programs with her main event, equine therapy. She has created a haven of celebrations, activities for families, and of all walks of life at her Wildwood farm. Join me in welcoming Hannah to Coffee with Kim.
There she is.
Good morning.
Good morning. We started a little bit early because we started talking and having such a great conversation. And look at this beautiful. This horse is Misty, and she has blue eyes.
See if I can focus in on.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So Hannah, what we do on Coffee with Kim is we want you to tell a little bit of your story, and then we're going to have our conversation. But it's such a beautiful story. And I forgot to mention to you, I did some of the pictures that were in the promo reel from Haiti and things I've brought, so we can explain a little bit about your history.
Absolutely. That sounds great. Well, I grew up in Haiti. My parents were non-traditional missionaries in the sense that my dad was not a pastor at the time. And they're from Canada, so we're multicultural all the way around. And his background was heavy machinery and construction. And so they went to Haiti on a short 5-month working vacation to see if this is something that they were really interested in doing. And they fell in love with the people. And, Haiti is the poorest country in the entire world, and they lack on so many different things, but you will not find a happier, more joyful, contented people on the face of the earth. And I think that has a lot to do with the sense of community and family values and all that goes with it. And so I lived there until I was 16. I was actually born there. Lived there till I was 16 when I came here to attend university. My plan was to go back and be a medical doctor in Haiti, but I got married instead and chased after a degree in biology, and it hangs on my wall now. So, and then because we had horses, one of the things that we did in Haiti was to reintroduce the horse and buggy concepts that had been eradicated in Haiti about 500 years earlier when the slaves overthrew the French government that was there. And because they hated the French with such great passion, everything that infrastructure-wise that was French or modern was destroyed, including a very, for us, primitive idea of a horse can pull way more than it can carry. And so one of the things that we did there was breed horses, train horses, and bring in the whole horse and buggy concepts back to Haiti. Because if you do everything by hand with like a hoe in a garden, to go from a hoe to a tractor is too big of a step. You have to have some steps in between to bridge that big gap. And so because I was the oldest of four, and I was the horse craziest one of the whole bunch, we had a Canadian trainer who unfortunately just died about 2 weeks ago. He was almost 90. He used to come to Haiti every year and would train all the upcoming 3 and 4-year-old horses. And since I spoke the language, I was his translator. And so I got to, from a very young age, learn how to handle horses and be around horses. Now, keep in mind that my family has had generations of horse people. My grandfather on my mom's side used big, heavy draft horses in the fields in Ontario, Canada. My dad used, and his whole family were lumber people up in very, very northern Quebec. So they used the big drafts to pull, to skid logs out of the bush and stuff like that. So horses were an easy step for me because I already the DNA imprinted on horses.
Yeah.
And so when I came here to the States, I didn't have a horse, which was like cutting my arm off. And so I started off with 1, and then 1 became 3, and 3 became 12, and 12 became 40.
Wow. See, and that's kind of what I was talking about is is this evolution, right?
Yeah.
And I want to show some pictures because and the promos go so fast. I want to show this. I thought this was this is kind of what you were talking about, correct?
Yeah. Yes. So an animal can pull about 10 times what it can carry. So if you can use, and of course, then you use a wheel, for instance, that makes it easier to carry, so you don't, or to pull it rather. And that was one of the things that we worked on, one of the many projects, but was the animal traction project.
Okay. And then this one too, I thought was really, so what are they doing here?
So here they're actually putting in a road. Dad was there, that was about 10 years ago, and Haitian infrastructure does not exist. And so big machinery like graders and dump trucks and stuff like that, they have some, but they're very, very, very few. So Dad was down there working on cutting in a road to another village way up in the mountains that was not accessible by vehicles. You could get there on foot or you could get there on an animal, but that was your only choice. And so they were putting in a road. And it was a food for work project, which means that they didn't get paid, but they got fed. We don't understand that here in this country where you could be that hungry to where you'd be willing to work all day for a plate of food. But, and it benefits them because then you can get a vehicle in there. So if there's an emergency problem or something along those lines, you can do it. I'm flanked here by my best helpers. Willow.
So I forgot to print that part out. So tell us all that's on the farm here. Tell us all the animals. And I want to hear a little bit of, and then we're going to back up and say how this evolved.
There you go. Well, we bought this property in 2019, December of 2019. And it was a miracle the way it actually happened. So that's a story in and of itself of how things work out the way they're supposed to. And now at the farm, we have 29 horses. We have all different breeds and ages and sizes and colors. We have 2 dogs. We have an Anatolian Shepherd Great Pyrenees cross that protects everything against coyotes because they're a big problem around here. We also have Xena, who's a big Great Dane cross. And then we have 14 cats. I think there's about 20 goats probably of all different shapes and sizes and colors. We have 7 cows, 1 guinea pig, 3 turtles, and fish that are in the aquarium. So
you have to have them all. I felt like I had a farm with my 3 oldest, because I have 6. So my 3 oldest, we had everything under the sun that you could have in a home. And so, no, I totally get that.
we did. Oh, we also have 3 pigs here. We also have at home, we have a blue-tongued skink, a crested gecko, a ball python, lovebirds, parakeets, and more fish. So yeah, we have lots. Oh, you want to be on the camera too? She's like, keep petting me.
Yes, of course. And it looks beautiful where you are. Oh my goodness. I've heard Atlanta's amazing. I have family and friends, that have lived there and have been there. So yeah, I really envy that. I'm looking forward to one day coming out and visiting you.
Absolutely. We're about an hour north of Atlanta. So we're straight due north up a big highway called 400, which is also 19. And so about an hour from the airport. We're right here in the Appalachian Mountains, the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So it's really starting to roll. And like our farm is on a big hill. We have like what I love about our farm is you don't know it's here until you come down the driveway. So it's like a surprise. And so it looks like you're just going into the mountain somewhere, into the forest. And then you come down a big hill. And as soon as you come down the big hill, the farm opens up. And then we have big pastures and whatnot. And so it's a beautiful piece of property. And we're so blessed to have it.
Yeah. So tell us the evolution, because you didn't wake up one day and said, I'm going to have a big farm and I'm going to have a 501c and I'm going to do this. I mean, people look at, someone like you or someone that has this dream of theirs and they think it just lands that way. And I really want people to understand that there's an evolution to this. And studying you, which I did, it is just the most beautiful story. And there's so many pieces to it, but and we'll probably have you on again because we want to go even more, but we want to get as much in this time that we have together as that we can get in. So explain that evolution and the different phases, any struggles that you may have had, that kind of thing.
That sounds great. So remember, I came to the United States when I was 16. So I was very young. The culture shock was astonishing. I had a hard time understanding why you could live in the freest, richest country in the world and not do anything with your life. I still have that to some extent, because opportunity is available if we just look for it. See, Misty's back. And
Oh,
so when I went to university, I was 16, and the first year that I was there, I met a guy and I got married, which probably wasn't the smartest of choices, but it started the journey. How's that?
yeah.
And we were married for 15 years. So, we were married a long time. And we started off with his family had land, but they were not farmers. And you either love farming or you do not. And if you do not, farming is a really horrible, terrible job because it's every day. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's Christmas. It doesn't matter if it's pouring down rain. It doesn't matter if it's boiling hot. You still have animals to feed and to take care of. I think that's probably one of the hardest parts of being a farmer is that it's continuous. And
Yeah.
nobody shows up one day and goes, "Oh, it's Christmas morning. Can you stay at home? We'll go feed the livestock." My crew
Yeah.
here is very helpful today.
I love having them there. I'm serious. It is so amazing and powerful having them there. I love it.
Truly, look at her. She's all happy too. Her ears are all forward, and she's like, "I'm on camera. I'm famous." And so, we started off with a piece of raw land, and it was just woods. I mean, there was nothing there. There was no infrastructure there. There was no fencing there. There was no nothing. But we had, 7 precious acres, and I found a horse on one of the little horse magazines that came around, and I told my husband at that point, I'm like, I'd really like to buy this horse, and he goes, "What are you going to do with it?" But he humored me, and we bought the horse, and we cleared off about a quarter of an acre of land to put the horse. And then my mom and dad came up the next year for Christmas because they lived in Florida at the time, and said, it was the middle of winter, it was snowing, it was cold, and mom coming in from northern, Canada was like, "There's no way these animals cannot have a shelter. They have to have a
Yeah.
shelter." And so we built a very small 3-stall. We actually used wood off the property. We used my stallion to skid the logs up. Remember, keep in mind, we're horse people that had no money but
Yes.
lots of energy. And so we begged, borrowed a chainsaw because we didn't even have a chainsaw, and we cut down timber off the property. The stallion and I drug it up the hill to where we were going to put the building site. We dug holes by hand and set the corner post for that little barn. And we had taken apart a barn to get the tin because remember we had my husband made $800 a month, and we had nothing. I mean, and I was in school full time. And so we started off with a little teeny tiny barn and one horse. And then one horse, like I said, turned into 3. And 3 turned into 9. And at that point, a lady called me and she said, "Hannah," she goes, "I'm going to buy these horses. I want you to board them for me. And I want to take as many lessons as possible of how to take care of them." And so that kind of started us. And so she had 5 horses and I had 3 horses. And I started teaching her. And that was an easy progression per se. And then a lady from church called and said, "I have a little 5-year-old girl that really wants to take lessons. Would you take her?" And this little teeny tiny petite little 5-year-old with these big brown eyes said, "Miss Hannah, I want to learn how to ride a horse." And so I started teaching her, and now she's a grown up. She's in her 30s now, and so that kind of started us. And we started doing a couple lessons here, a couple lessons there. And then I got some more lesson horses, and, it kind of evolved from there. And then in 1999, I take that back. In 1996, I was given a horse that I didn't know how to do with her. She was, I was working at a big Arabian farm at the time, and this horse was completely unmanageable. She wasn't even 2 years old yet, which is a young, very young horse. And when you'd go out to the pasture, she'd be on her hind legs. She'd be biting and kicking and striking at you and just flat out terrifying. And they're like, "Hannah, you can have her if you want her." And I'm like, "Sure, that sounds great."
Yes.
For an 18-year-old, that sounds delightfully fun. At 45 now, not quite so much fun. But at that time, I'm like, "Sure, I'll take her." And I figured that I could bring her around with sweetness and kindness and gentleness, and I couldn't get anywhere.
Wow.
And I was just stuck. And every time I'd go out, we were in grave danger for your life because she would attack you. And I was so afraid to give her away to anybody else because I'm like, somebody's going to kill somebody. So at least that way I know where she is if she's here. And I didn't know what to do with her. I mean, I tried everything that I knew how to do. Now, keep in mind, I've been handling horses since I was a little girl, and I couldn't get to square one with this horse. And I went to Equine Affair up in Ohio, which is like a big, huge horse symposium. And I watched one of the big clinicians working with the horses, but he did kind of like a recipe. Like you need a horse, a round corral, a rope. Okay, I have that. And then you chase the horse around and the horse, comes to trust you. And I'm like, okay. And so I
Right?
didn't understand the science behind it, and he didn't explain the why. Well, I am a scientist by trade, so
Yep.
I like to know why something works, not
I'm
that
a
it
why
does,
person too, and I have a
but why.
biology background.
Exactly. And so if you can tell me the why, I can spin it however you want it spun.
Yep.
And so I didn't get a whole lot of that clinic because I didn't understand the why. Like I said, it was a recipe where you put all these things together and this magic is supposed to happen. Okay. But there was
Yeah.
no magic. There was no magic. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine gave me Monty Roberts's book, Man Who Listens to Horses. And I'm reading this book and I'm looking at all these signals that he's talking about. And I said, I've seen these signals, but I had never put two and two together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so Monty calls it join up. And so I went out and I'm like, lady, you and I are going to learn how to do join up. And we're going to find out real quick whether or not this works or not. And so I had never seen join up. I had only read about it in a book. And so about 2 hours later, we achieved join up. And she changed so dramatically that one of the little girls during lesson time accidentally picked the wrong horse because I had two that looked similar. They were the same color.
Yeah.
But that's about where the similarity ended. And she actually had Lady, who was this like raving maniac of a horse, in the barn brushing her. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Come away from the horse, step away, step away. And the mare's looking at her like, what's the problem? I was getting brushed. And I'm like, really? This will do this much for this horse? And so I started doing my version of join up with limited knowledge that I knew about it with every horse I could get my hands on. And then Monty came to Atlanta right after the Olympics in 96. And I got to watch him do join up. And he does it in like 8 minutes. And I was like, oh, well, that's a lot better than how I've been doing it. But I was still getting really good results. And I think the biggest thing here is just because you aren't trained to do something doesn't mean that you can't try and explore it and play with it and spin it. And people get, well, I'm afraid to mess up. You get better by trying. And so that's been kind of our theme throughout my life is Dolly Parton has a saying that I love, and it says, I never tried quitting and I never quit trying.
Oh my gosh. I had not heard it. And I love her and I grew up with her. And oh my gosh.
That's one of her
awesome.
sayings. So that kind of is like my, one of the themes of my life is keep trying, keep pushing forward, keep looking for opportunities, keep looking for open doors. And if one door is not open, well, good, go try the back door and keep trying and keep looking. And so that kind of fast forwarded through the next 20 years. I went to California to Monty's and actually received my instructor training back in 2000. So I'm one of the old timers per se when it comes to his methodologies and stuff. But his whole message is nonviolence. You do not have to be violent to accomplish what you need to do. And violence can be, a physical violence, or violence can be an emotional issue or a loudness issue, or, all the other things that go along with that. And trauma comes in many different forms. And so it was a very natural progression to go from nonviolence in the horses to nonviolence in the teaching, which I've always been an advocate for, because you have these people training people that hate people. Like, if you hate people, why are you teaching them?
Right.
And so you have like these Gestapo horse trainers that are like, you will do what I say, make the horse listen. And I'm like, okay. Or not.
No. And I told you, I grew up with horses with my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched him be very gentle and very kind. He used his little whistle. He had a certain little type of whistle. And man, they knew that, and they came and were just loving all over him. So I totally get what you're saying.
Exactly. Then once we finished that, we moved. My first husband and I divorced in 2009 after the birth of my first son. So he's now 13. And so that was traumatic. And I had to leave my farm, the farm that we had built, because it was his family's land. And it was some of the darkest times of my life per se, because every fence post that I had dug, every fence that I had built, every tree I had planted, every bush that I had planted, you had to leave all behind. And,
Wow.
we'd already been uprooted from Haiti, and then I had to leave my farm, and it was a blessing in disguise, because now the farm, behind us was just woods, and the farm now is all subdivision, like all behind it. And so, all these hundreds of homes, and I would have hated to be that closed in. So it was a good thing. In the same breath,
Yeah.
during the time, it was really difficult not to let bitterness come into play, because it's like,
Yeah.
this was my farm. I'm the one that loves the farm. They didn't,
Right.
and it was my farm that and my family's farm that we'd worked so hard for. And we ended up renting a place. About 4 years later, I remarried. I married a lovely man from the Czech Republic, and his name is Peter. And he's
Oh.
a master carpenter, and he is gifted in that dimension, is all I can say. And so we rented a place over, like, the most amazing horse farm you could ever imagine, for about 4 years. And the doors closed on that place very unexpectedly and very fast. And what I didn't realize is that we were being maneuvered. We had 10 days to vacate the property,
Oh,
because they were
wow.
changing, the people that owned it were changing what they were going to do. And so we had to leave very, very fast. And it was like, where are we going to go?
Yeah.
This is Forsyth County. Forsyth County is the fastest growing county in the nation, and has been for the last 20 years. There are no farms left. It's all subdivisions. And
Wow.
if you go too far away, then you lose all your people. And
Yep.
if you stay close, land is so stupidly priced, you can't afford to farm. And
Yeah.
what I didn't realize is there was a door that was being flung open, but it was only open for 3 days. And had we not jumped as fast as we did, this door would have been closed. And so in
Yeah.
hindsight, during the time, it was terrible, because it was the middle of December. It was pouring down rain, freaky cold. We had 10 days to move the entire farm. And the horses are the easiest part to move, because they just get on the trailer by themselves.
Yeah.
It's all the crap that goes with them. The
Yes.
machinery, the tractors, the hay, the equipment, the round pen, the jumps, all that stuff that has to be physically moved onto a trailer, moved to the new location, emptied.
I
And
can't even imagine that.
it was again, one of the bleakest days of my life, that 10 days, because we didn't know where we were going. And I had done a favor for a lady a couple of years prior, that I didn't know such a good thing, such a good deed would come back and visit me 1,000 times fold.
They do.
Yes. And you're supposed to do the right. And so the other big life one that I try to do is, those who are given much, much is required.
Hmm.
And so I've always felt, even like with all the stuff that we technically own, it doesn't belong to me. I'm a steward of it. And
Yes.
so even like my horses, who are my lifeblood, quite literally, there are times and in needs and extreme circumstances that someone else needs them more than I do.
Yeah.
And the lady had called and said there was a disease that went through her barn that made everybody really sick. And so all her horses were in quarantine for the next 3 months. And they had all this Special Olympics that was coming up. And could she please borrow some horses? Well, I don't lend my horses. I'll lend my truck, my tractor, my equipment, but I
Yeah.
don't lend my horses, partially because people are not careful with them. And
Yeah.
anyway, so long story short, I really felt that I needed to help this lady. And so I told her, sure. And I told her, I said, these are the best ones for, I think, what you need. Try them, see if you want them. Well, it turned out she didn't need them. But what happened is that when all this malarkey went down with having to leave the other farm so fast, the horse community was in an uproar, because they were just absolutely aghast at what had transpired.
Yeah.
And she said, Hannah, she goes, you did me a service, so in turn, I'm going to return the favor. She goes, we are vacating a farm on Wednesday. You could move in temporarily on Friday. Now, keep in mind, we have until the next Wednesday to leave the property, because
Yeah.
the other owner, he was just horribly ugly, and I don't like the way he handled it. In the same breath, had we not moved so fast, it wouldn't have gotten done.
Hmm.
And so we moved the farm, and so we moved in. The first load was Friday night, and in the pouring rain, we had people that came in from all over the places with trucks and trailers, and people I hadn't seen in
Wow.
20 years. showed up
Wow.
and said, we're here to help you. What can we do? And people would come in and come out, and there was a police officer that was there to guard us, I guess, to make sure that we didn't do damage to this guy's property.
Oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
you don't know me good enough by now. What do you think I'm going to do? Burn the barn down? But anyway, this guy, he kept coming in, and all these people that were coming in, and they'd stay for a couple hours and they'd leave, and new people would come in and they would work for a little while and then they would leave. And I was unhooking Saturday night. We were shot. I mean, it was freezing cold. It rained and rained and rained. We got 5 inches of rain that weekend. Okay, so I mean,
Wow.
rain. And I drove around the back of the barn to unhook one trailer to hook up to the other trailer, and the police officer followed me around. And he walked over to me and he said, "Ma'am, do you ever quit?" And I said, "No, sir, quit's not in my vocabulary." And he said, "Wherever you're going," he said, "your testimony of how you have worked in these terrible conditions with all these people," he said, "I haven't heard one ugly word." He goes, "You guys are laughing and joking. And instead of being mad and angry," he goes, "wherever you're going will be better than here." He said, "It doesn't matter if you're going under a bridge somewhere. It'll be better than how you were treated here." And so that gave me like
Wow.
courage and inspiration, because I was, when you reach the end of your rope, and I was there, I was so cold and so exhausted and didn't hardly know which way was up at this point. I'm thinking, we're never going to get all this stuff moved in time. To have him add that little trickle of encouragement lifted my spirits. And I was like, okay, we can do this. Here we go. Come on.
And we all need that in life, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think sometimes when we get to that breaking point, there are those, I call them these angel people
Yes.
who come in and just say what you need to hear,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I love that. I love that story. And you are such an inspiration to me. I want people to get to know you, to learn from you, because you do have that unstoppable, spirit. And that's you and I, even just talking to you now, I'm now realizing how much we have in common, because I'm the same way. I do not know the word quit or find another way of doing it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Keep trying. Step forward. Keep trying. Hold the line.
Yeah.
All those are like key
So
phrases.
talk about real briefly, because we're getting closer on time here,
Yes.
but talk about some of the services. There's some beautiful things that you are doing at and that you are literally changing lives through your animals.
Yes, truly. So, under the guise of a farm, we work with families. And so I do an enormous amount of writing lessons. Within writing lessons, we minister to families. And so we take volunteers of all ages and sizes, because again, I want families to disconnect from technology, get back onto the land, work together. And farming is such a wonderful thing in the sense that you can see what you've accomplished that day. Like if you're building a fence, well, at the end of the day, you have a fence that stands for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just play on the computer game, 20 years from now, who cares about that computer game? It's redone 15 different ways by that time.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of birthday parties here. And again, people come and they're like, we didn't even know that we needed a farm. And so it's a way to reconnect with the land, reconnect with the creatures. And we have lots of them so people can see, the real version of them. Like they had one guy the other day that was my age, and he said, I didn't know that chickens came in so many different colors.
Yeah.
Like it's something as simple as a chicken, and then we won't even talk about what color eggs they lay, and different color chickens lay different color eggs, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so then in all of that, we also run, so Wildwood Farm is the main parent company, and it was incorporated. I started it in 96. I incorporated it in 2001. And then since then, it has, grown exponentially since then. So our main bread and butter per se are lessons, writing lessons for adults and children, summer camps, day camps, holiday camps. We also do a lot of birthday parties, special events, stuff like that. But then as a sister company, we were gifted back in 2020 a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit called the Main Event Equine Therapy. And under it is where we do some of the other stuff that we love to do. And so we run an empowering struggling youth program where we work with equine assisted learning with the horses on how to handle social issues better, especially for youth. Most of them are about 14, 12, 13, 14, that age group of kids that struggle with bullying and
Mm-hmm.
school pressure and social bullying and all the things that our teenagers have to fight against
Mm-hmm.
in modern age. We also run a military work where we work with people with PTSD and different traumas like that. And then, of course, we always work in Haiti. And so, one of the things that we do, because education down there is all privately funded. So, if you go to a public school, you might only get to go to school maybe 30 days out of the whole year. Whereas if you go to a private school, you probably get to go, like a regular 180-day year. And so last year we sent 12 kids to school. This year our goal is to send 20 kids to school, and you can help. It costs $250 to send one
Wow.
child to school for the whole year.
Really?
Whole year. And
Oh
that
my gosh.
includes school materials. So, to us,
Wow.
$250 is like nothing.
That's
To
nothing.
them, it's life changing. And so,
Wow.
because of the political landscape there is so terrible, we've also sent the 12 families that we sent their kids to school this year. I've asked for additional funds to feed those families, because the school that I had sent them to, or we had sent them to, was supposed to feed them lunch every day. So they would get at least one meal a day. Can you imagine? All
No,
you
I
get is one
can't.
meal a day. But because it's just terrible down there right now, and so the food supply has ran out. And so for $150 a month, you can feed the family one meal a day. And so we've added that to
Wow.
the list also of things that we do through the main event. And that way, if you need a tax receipt or whatever, we
Mm-hmm.
can give that. But it's a way of giving back. And so, without education, the country, 80% of the country can't read or write. Well, you
Yeah.
can't move towards democracy or capitalism or anything like that if you can't do basic stuff like reading and writing and
Yeah.
things that we take for granted here. And so that's one of the many fingers that we have in a lot of different places.
Wow. And just in closing, you were telling me about something you're also doing with men on the farm as well.
Yes, this is a new project that we're just starting, and it has to do with leaving a legacy. It's a book that I read not too long ago, and it's about specifically for men. It could be for women also, but
Yes.
it's for men that have retired from their regular work job, but they're an awfully long way from being dead, and to provide purpose and community and whatnot. And so they meet very informally here at the farm. We have a group about 4 or 5 of them right now, and I would see that it would grow over the next couple of years, where they come, they work for a couple of hours in whatever capacity they can do, whether it's putting flashing on a building or painting or helping me feed horses or whatever the building project is that we're working on, because this farm is always in flux. Hey, this is my nephew. And this is
Oh,
Judah.
hi. Oh, what a doll.
and uh, and so they bring a sack lunch, they hang out, they work for a little while. And so, like I said, we're in the infancy of this project, but I see big things for it, for a way to men to plug back in and be so valued for all the wisdom that they can offer at that part of their life that oftentimes we as a culture disregard.
Yeah.
And sitting on the couch watching TV does not help you.
No.
You need to be
No.
productive, and you need to share your wealth of knowledge, and it's a way of doing it.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Hannah, you are a gift to this world, and you are definitely creating and building and have built that legacy. And such an honor to know you, and it's such an
You.
honor to be able to show more of the world of who you are and what you're doing. It
Thank
is just
you.
extraordinary. I do want to let people know how to get a hold of you. So we talked about that. So if you would like to know more about what Hannah's doing, if you'd like to support what they are doing, call or text Hannah at 770-843-2478. It's just right down here. I mean, in fact, not very many people give out their phone number, so watch out if you get a flood.
That's okay. Misty's back.
Hello, Missy. I'm so glad we started the show with you. Now we're going to get to end the show with you.
She's looking at the nephew now. You see him?
Oh, so
Are
precious.
you petting
Thank
him?
you
You
for
can pet him.
sharing. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your world with us and your life with us for this last, half hour or so. And Really, really appreciate you. And all the
Thank
best to you.
you.
And we're going to be staying in touch.
That sounds great.
All
Thank you so
right.
much. It was an honor to be on here with you.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. It never ceases to amaze me the people that have been coming and being brought into my life. And I am so grateful for this woman and what she is doing in this world. And I hope that we get to shine more light on this. I did ask her to share with us her word. I'm going to do this really quick. I forgot to do this. What is your word for this year? Because I'm starting to ask my guests this.
There you go. My word for this year is advance. To advance in the calling that I am called to minister to people, to their heart, to their family, to advance this property. Because like I said, we're in big, huge building phase right now. So to advance those projects, I didn't even tell you about the Miracle Barn. That's for another day. But
okay, we will get you scheduled in the next few months for called the Miracle Barn, correct?
Sounds great. Yes.
Okay. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and please, I would really appreciate you sharing this, subscribing to our YouTube channel, so that we can have more people be able to see all these amazing people that are being brought into our life. And don't forget to text Hannah at this number if you can give or help in any way. You guys have the rest of your day.